Hey guys, this is Doug with Cold War Collectors bringing you another item. This is the Butane camo. Now, the thing that's important about this camouflage, this was first designed in 1981. This was the precursor to TTsKo. Now, TTsKo became widespread after the Afghan War and saw use in Chechnya. Now, the thing that's interesting about this camouflage, I'll just zoom in on it for a bit. You can tell the design is somewhat similar to TTsKo. However, there's a lot of differences because this has less collected lines and, less collected lines, and it also has just generally different dye, although most TTsKo variants, especially Ukrainian TTsKo, but not like as in the modern Dubak TTsKo that Ukraine is phasing out. This was the precursor to it. Then after this, then they made TTsKo, and then after they made a weird variant of this called the swirl camo, which there's only been 2 pictures of it in recorded use. One was during the first Chechen War, used by, I believe, the Russian Marines. I think it might have been a private purchase one. And the other one was a picture of pants used in eastern Ukraine because they just have storages of all this old stuff. Now, the thing that's important about this, in the late part of the Soviet Union, they had the military-owned factories, they had the big factories, and then they had the local factories making these uniforms. This one is a small factory variant because it's very flimsy cotton, and you can just tell it's not necessarily military quality. Like, for example, it may look military quality, however, there's a lot of differences. I'm just gonna take the pants from this and show you one of the reasons why. Because of the stitching on the inside of it. Now you can see it has red stitching, and there's like no type of white cotton that would separate it. That's one way how to tell. Plus the buttons, these are really small. These aren't Soviet military buttons. These are like civilian black Bakelite buttons, and they also has a few other ones right along there. So this is like a civilian, this is made by a civilian factory. The thing that's interesting about it, you can't see it that well on here, but there's like a 77 marked in chalk. It's better on some of the other pockets. Now, another thing that's interesting about it, the pants have red, but the uniform shirt itself has green. These were part of a matching set, and the thing that's interesting, usually most Soviet uniforms have a date stamp in this area, but this one doesn't because it's a civilian manufactured one made for the military. It has this type of tag right here, which you can't really see what it says that much. It says 164, like 91 or 92, 76. You can't really see it that well though, but it has the little hanger right there. And what you do, this is really strange because usually these would be thicker. This is like the part that goes around your neck, and this is the collar itself. You'd have this thicker so that you could attach a collar liner. Now the thing that's also interesting about this is that it's basically all in an M88 cut, which is quite good. And this is it. Now it has a very strange like number here. It like curves like that, and then it looks like a 7. It's just weird. It's in the M88 configuration, and then this is another thing that shows about how different it is. This is the replacement fabric right here. It's like a very brown bi-color camo, which is a variant of TTsKo they made that only came in 2-color variants. Now the thing that's important about this saw service in very small amounts in the Afghan War, mainly TTsKo used by pilots. However, there was a picture of a woman's defense force in Afghanistan in the Democratic People's Republic of Afghanistan using TTsKo, not Butane. And there's a picture of a Mujahideen fighter in Kabul in '92 using TTsKo pants. Now, the thing that's important, this is Butane, so this wasn't really implemented that widespread as TTsKo was. However, this saw service in a lot of post-Soviet conflicts, like Transnistria, which was a conflict between the Moldovans, these people living on one side, Moldovans, people living on one side of a river in Moldova, which is the Dniester River, the Romanians and the Russians' 14th Guard Army. It also saw service in Nagorno-Karabakh. It saw service in the Tajik Civil War. Now, the thing is that's important about this, a lot of countries made really weird variants of it. I think Kazakhstan, I'm not certain, they made this variant of it called silver, which is like, in these areas, like right there, that would be like bluish, and the like tan area would be purple, which they some reason how just managed to see service in the first Chechen War. I don't know how, honestly. unless they were private purchase ones. These did see service in Chechnya by the first Chechen War by both sides. You had both the separatists, the Chechen nationalistic separatists using this, but mainly in the winter variants, and then you had some Russians using them. They also made these in, they also made 6B5s and 6B3s with Butane and other camos patterns, and this one, like, you would occasionally see this, but most of the time artillery guys would get it because the other guys would get the olive drab one, and occasionally Marines would use these. Well, Marines are naval infantry, it just depends on the translation. Now, the other important thing about this is that this camouflage has more than likely made in a Ukrainian factory, because most TTsKo and Butane was made in the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic and afterwards. Now, most former Soviet republics use a TTsKo or Butane variant. Estonia used a direct copy of TTsKo, and they're still making a digitalized version of it. Latvia, I think they used a very short amount of Butane, like a weird variant of Butane and TTsKo that looks really strange. Lithuania, they use a TTsKo variant. Ukraine, they still have their Dubak camo, which is usually sold as Soviet TTsKo, but it has very green based, and they're phasing it out with new variants and digitalized. They also have the blue MVS TTsKo, which is their version of the MVD. Another thing is Moldova use these, so this is often called the Moldova or Transnistrian camo, but that's just completely wrong because these were made in the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic and Ukraine afterwards. Supposedly these were also shipped out to Africa during some conflicts, but there's really no proof of that. There's also rumors that Soviet advisors in Angola use these, but I also believe those do not have any proof. Now, another thing about this is that in the USSR they made the bicolor variant, which was, as I said before, a variant of TTsKo, which was extremely rare. Now, these are just hard to get, mainly because they either come extremely large and extremely expensive, or really small and really cheap, and most of the times they're in tanker cut, but this is VDV cut. As you can see, that's one of the pockets, it got the sleeve pockets, however it doesn't have the lower pockets on the tunic, and it also has the side pockets on the pants, so I didn't put it back because of, it would just take up too much time to do that. Now, the thing that's important about this is that it also saw service in the Georgian military, the military of Armenia, Azerbaijan. It also saw service in the 93 war in Georgia. It also saw service in the Nagorno-Karabakh War. I'm pretty sure I butchered the pronunciation of that. It also saw service in some of the other Chechen republics. Well, not Chechen republics, like the Caucasus republics, like South Ossetia, Abkhazia. I'm pretty sure I butchered the pronunciation on that again. But these did see service in the Soviet army, but in very small amounts. Most of them were used in post-Soviet conflicts, though. And occasionally, very rarely, you see these even rarer than Type 2 TTsKo in Ukraine, but occasionally you will see this variant in Ukraine. Now, the thing that's important about this, since these were made by local factories, the dyes varied from factory to factory and from time to time. This may seem of more like an aquamarine blue, but that's not. It's like a dark brown green, very dark brown. Now, another thing that's important about these is that these also supposedly saw service with the Taliban very early on and the Northern Alliance, but I also happen to doubt that. I know that there was small amounts of TTsKo given to the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan. However, it was extremely small amounts, and they were used up rather quickly. Another thing about these is occasionally you will see Butane like winter sets, but they usually go for like about $1,000 sometimes. It's just really, really expensive. Now the thing is a lot of times some former Soviet republics like the Baltic states, except for Estonia, got their camo from Ukraine. Now the thing is that this is Butane, and the Ukrainians made Butane like up until like 93 or 94, and then they stopped making it and continued using the Dubak camo. Now, the thing that's important about that is that these really did not see production after 93, and then they were all exported out of Ukraine basically in 94, except for some in storage in like the middle of in some storage areas where they basically had PPSHs and SKSs, because what they did in the Soviet Union is they said, if the production facilities get destroyed during a nuclear attack, we won't have anything, so we should just store up all the weapons and all the other supplies. So usually when you see these, they come out either in extremely worn condition and they're beat to hell, but those are usually military ones, because the civilian ones were made out of extremely light fabric and they just tore all the time. This is a civilian one. well, civilian small factory one. These ones are usually rare because the ones that did see service basically got all destroyed. Now, the other thing that's important about this is that the buttons vary usually, the cut sometimes varies, the coloration of the fabric varies, the length of the fabric, and just all these other factors just vary on these, like when they're made by civilian factories. Usually the big military factories like Nagorno-Karabakh in, I believe, Tajikistan or Kazakhstan, those ones that was a military-owned factory. Very rarely you will see a color variation because they just had all standardized dyes. Now, the thing that's important about this is that this is one of the uncommon variants of it, but it's not like the blue one, which is extremely rare. And another important thing about these is I said that they are extremely rare before, but the other thing that's important about these is that usually you will see on eBay sometimes 6B5s that are in Butane camo, and those are extremely, extremely rare. If you see one of those, they usually go for 500. Get it immediately. Or a bi-color one, get those immediately. Most of the time, these are in summer suits. Rarely you will see them in winter suits, and it's like bi-colors the opposite. Most of the time, I've only seen 2 on eBay. Most of the time, they're usually in winter. They're in a winter suit, and they're almost never in... They're basically never in a summer suit, so that's probably all about that. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that this was basically invented in 81, and then they found out this wasn't that practical. So by about 85, when the Soviets were still in Afghanistan, they had helicopter pilots using TTsKo variants for the flight suits, not Butane variants. Although there were Butane variants, but they're extremely hard to find. They're almost like non-existent. It's like the Gulag VHKOR hats or anything from the Gulag VHKOR. It's just almost impossible to find. Anyway, I think that probably might be all about this. If you see any Butane items, especially 6B5s or helmet covers or any other uniforms, please contact anybody at Cold War Collectors, and I believe that is all.